Hello and welcome to Save Your Sanity. I'm Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how to say no to a narcissist and make it stick. I think we're all very aware that narcissistic people hate to hear no, and it can be a big controversial sticking point. And we want to find the ways to be able to say no. No is a complete sentence, and many people don't realize that. And it's definitely unwelcome information if you're saying no to a narcissistic person. Um, and people say no, and as soon as the no is out, they rush in to give their reasons. I feel like I have to tell you why I'm saying no. No, you don't. Or apologize for saying no. No, you don't. Do you accord yourself the right to just know that no is a complete sentence? No, I wouldn't like to do that. No, I wouldn't like to go there. No, that doesn't work for me. You can couch it in language like that, but it still doesn't have justifications, doesn't have rationalizations, doesn't have excuses or reasons or an apology. It is simply direct. No, I wouldn't like to do that. I wouldn't care to be there. I can't do that in that time frame. And no is a complete sentence. That can be big news for some people because they've never lived in an environment where that was possible. But when you really realize that no reasons are required, no apologies are required, you're actually allowed to say, no, I wouldn't care to do that. That can be so freeing. Now, Hijackal is going to go a bit ballistic. We know that, but we'll handle it. But it's important for us emerging empowered people to know that you have the right to say no. And you don't have to justify it. I remember long ago when Tupperware parties were sort of at the end of their time, and I could not for the life of me understand why you had to go to so many. Yeah, I understood that the hostess got a present, so you were supposed to be there. But if Tupperware is supposed to last a lifetime, why do I need so much of it? It was always something that just confounded me. So I discovered that I needed to say no frequently because they were still inviting me frequently. So you learn to say no in a way that is firm and direct, but polite and kind. So I would say in that circumstance, thank you for inviting me. No, I don't care to go to a Tupperware party. Maybe you and I can get together some other time. But it's important to start thinking about how you say no and that you have the right to say no to anything, whether that's broccoli or frog's legs or chocolate covered crickets or abuse in all forms. You have the right to say no. You have the right to become open and skilled and responding to them. And you have the right to say no to invitations, expectations, and supposed obligations. And you can say no to sex. And no means no. It really, really does. But no only means no if you don't cave. Got that? No only means no if your signals are direct and clear and you don't cave. So we need to learn a few things about that because you can learn to be open and skilled at responding to what follows when you say no to a hijackal. Narcissists have no problem asking you for anything, no matter how outrageous. They will ask because they think they deserve it. And their philosophy is, well, if you don't ask, you won't get it. And I'm going to exert power, if not coercive control, to get it because I am narcissistic. So therefore, I'll just start there by asking. And so they don't expect to hear no. And of course, people have the right to ask. But when I'm working with my clients, I tell them, don't ask a question that you're not equally willing to hear yes or no. Don't ask the question if you're not equally willing to hear yes or no, because it's not an honest question. You see how clear that is? That you cannot be asking something and have only one acceptable answer. That is totally lacking in emotional maturity. And you want to step up and step into that demonstration of emotional maturity. I can hear yes, I can hear no. All I'm looking for is information and direction. But a hijackal can't. A hijackal can't do that. When they ask, they're asking because they want a solid yes and yesterday. And that makes them different. Healthier humans are different from hijackal humans. And there's one way. So, do you accord yourself the right to say no to partners or parents or siblings or friends or colleagues? Do you give yourself the right to say no? Or do you feel an obligation if someone asks you, you should say yes? Because that's the first piece of work that you need to do. If it's always a yes with you, you have no boundaries. And, I've done episodes on boundaries. And part of being able to say no is being able to set a boundary. So very important. So cultivate the ability to say no. Practice the ability to say no, even in tiny little things. Part of an answer, no to the frog legs, but yes to the sexual intimacy. Start small, but do it. Do it. No is like a boundary. In fact, it is a boundary, but you've heard me say before, if you've been listening for a while, boundaries are only boundaries when they're non-negotiable. And a no needs to be non-negotiable. If it isn't non-negotiable, then be honest enough to say maybe. But if it's a solid no, be sure to deliver that with clarity. It's a solid no. And that will help you with your honesty. It's just not going to happen. You can stand on your head, spit wooden nickels for a decade, and the answer is still no. No, 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 no. And non-negotiable means only no. And as I said, hijackals and narcissistic people of all kinds hate hearing no because they're entitled. They believe that you should be giving them everything and preferably be a mind reader and give it to them before they ask, right? So this is really bringing us to clarity around how to deal with these folks in our lives. So, and narcissists, when you say no to them, is having an internal conversation, if not sputtering out their mouth. How dare you? Because their request is really a demand. You already know that, I'm sure. It may be veiled in civility, but it's really a demand, and they expect your compliance. They're not fooling around. I asked you nicely. There's only one right answer, and give it to me. So it's going to take some repetition to change your behaviors to making no a complete answer. Because they will come back. They will come back with a different approach, a different question, a different scenario. They will find a way. They're looking to cajole or to beg, or they'll use humor, or they'll use a story. Remember when we had that lovely time? Well, wouldn't it be nice to do this? It could produce something just like that lovely time. The answer is still no, but they are trying to change the narrative. They may flirt, they may demand, they may rage, they may threaten, all the things that hijackals do. But you are having a moment where you say, my internal no is turned on. It is a no. It's not a maybe. It is a no. And I'm clear about that. I don't have to get angry. I don't have to be afraid. I just have to be solid. It's a no. Because when they hear no, it doesn't mean no to them. When they hear it, when they say it, it certainly means no. But when they hear it, it doesn't mean no. It either sets up a challenge or sets up an obstacle that they are going to take down. So they hear from a no, either convince me or make me, right? Or somewhere in between. So we're setting up something that isn't going to work very well. So they're tough choices. Think a lot about what you want to say no to. I'm going to give you some ways to do this thinking and to change the ways that you interact with the narcissistic person. One of those ways is don't respond right away. And I'll have to think about that. Frustrating to a hijackal. No question. Frustrating to a hijackal. They want an immediate win. That's why they asked the question. They wanted an immediate win. They didn't want to have to wait. They didn't want to have to employ any measures. They simply wanted that immediate win. So you insert a little time. I don't know. That's a new idea. I'll have to think about that. Not certain. I'll have to check my calendar. I don't know if that'll work for me, but I'll get back to you. Now, that may be a brand new way for you to interact with your hijackal because you're so used to doing what they want or giving them a vague answer, which they take as a yes anyway. So as you are emerging empowered by finding your no, this is a great exercise for you. It's just to be able to calmly, without anxiety, yeah, you may have to fake it a bit, but in the beginning, but learn to say no from a neutral place, not a sarcastic place, not a rude place, simply from an authentic place. No, that doesn't work for me. And then start to delay your answer a bit. I have to think about it. Give me a couple of days. When do you need to know by? I won't be able to think about it until Thursday. Communicate. Open communication lines. Just do that. They don't like it. They want that immediate win. But hijackals will get up in the morning, every morning, I swear they do, and they open the windows and they have a conversation in their head with, how many ways will people give in to me today? How can I win in every circumstance? Well, when you start to stand up in your back legs and stand strongly in your authentic self, you will start saying, I don't think that'll work. Or that's not what I want. Or just simply, no, not then. Or no, not at all. Or no, never. Right? So teach your hijackal to wait. Do it in small increments. I'm going to think about that for an hour or two. I'll get back to you. And then start extending the time. When they ask, don't answer for a while. Got it? Great. Okay, hijackals think no is the opening opportunity for them to persuade you. So when you say no, they think, a challenge. I've got to find a way around them. I've got to find a way to convince them. I've got to find a way to threaten or intimidate them. I've got to do something. And that's where the challenge comes, because now you have to teach them that your answer, your no, is non-negotiable. We're not going to have a conversation that's going to change my mind. And you have to behave from that place. But you don't have to be rough about it. You can say, I know that you think adding more examples will change my mind. I really want you to know I'm firm in my no. Or you may think that I haven't thought about all the angles. Believe me, I have. And the answer is a firm no. And you just start repeating that. Like that, there is a wall here. Do not walk through it. It is a no, right? And you get clear about that. But you have to teach them that you have drawn a line in the sand in ink. It's not questionable. It's not moving. You have written that line in the sand in ink. And they may decide that a good thing when you say no to them is to demand an explanation. Well, guess what? You don't have to explain your no. I thought about it, and for me, it's not something I'd like to do. Why not? Oh, for many reasons, but the answer is still the same. Now, you can elaborate if you want. It's nothing lost by giving them a reason or two if you want to. But the thrust of tonight's episode is to remind you that you can be on solid ground and say no without giving them your reasons. And they're going to come back at you. They'll argue, they'll escalate, they'll rage, they'll intimidate, they'll walk off, there'll be a silent treatment. Be ready for that. Just be ready for that, because it'll happen. You know them. Or there'll be a pity party. If you have a covert narcissistic person, you'll have a pity party. You don't care what I want. You don't care when I have a need. You don't even entertain my ideas. I don't know why. Maybe I'll commit suicide. You know, they'll go to any lengths to get a yes. Any lengths at all. And you have to be wary about that. Oh, 4 healthy steps back. I see the pattern. Don't like that pattern. It's a solid no. And then you get healthier. And then you get stronger. You become more assertive. No need to be aggressive. And then they're going to come back at you, as hijackals like to do. They're with generalizations. So, well, I don't know why you can never do anything that I want. Never? Broad generalizations. And I did a whole episode on that, right? On generalizations and glossing over, and the way that that hijackals use that as a tactic, as a strategy. So they will try to make something very general. You never, you always. Things get very black and white, very yes, no. And they need to stay that way. When you give a no, it is a no. And they will come at you, and they will start to tear you down. Who do you think you are? Why are you being so difficult? I don't care what you think, I'm going to do it anyway. And they will tear at you, and they will tell you you don't understand the way the world works. And they will berate you for your lack of willingness to go with their program. Or they'll argue why they're right. I mentioned in last week's episode the wonderful song by Michael Byers about couple life, and wonderful line in it. He says they're arguing over whose truth is more true. And there's a lot of truth in that. People like to argue over whose truth is more true rather than learning to collaborate, cooperate, connect. They stay apart and fight. And that will never be a satisfying relationship. So another thing they'll do when you say no to them is they'll threaten to tell somebody. Now remember, when you scratch a hijackal, when you emotionally scratch a hijackal, you find an emotional toddler, right? You don't give them what they want. Imagine that 3 or 4-year-old standing at the checkout in the grocery store when you just told them that they can't have the candy bar. We got the pout, we've got the scowl, we've got the collapse, we've got the fall on the floor, we've got the screaming, we've got the I hate you, all of that. Isn't that just what a hijackal does when you say no to them? They're emotional toddlers. and they behave that way. So just like with an emotional toddler, you don't stoop to that level. You just simply watch, and then you say, I think we can move on now. Or I'm going to leave this store. Would you like to come? And the child wants to have the tantrum, but when they really realize that the answer is no, then they go. And your job is to teach hijackals when the answer is a solid no. So when they may threaten to tell other people that you're crazy, that you're unreliable, that you're uncooperative, that you're a liar, that you're outrageous, or that you're out of your mind, they're going to do that anyway because it works to their win factor. Remember, they get up in the morning looking for the wins. So their threat that they're going to tell somebody you're awful and uncooperative, let it fall on dark ears, deaf ears. Who cares? It's still a no, because your power is emerging. I can say no. I'm not saying no to be ornery. I'm not saying no to be difficult, because that would be game playing. Say no when you mean no, when it's not okay with you, when it doesn't work for you, when it's nothing that you would like to do. And when you need to say no, you need to mean it. And even if they try their other tactic of sweet talking you, they'll flip back to that love bombing self that got you in the first place, right? Oh, I really know you want to give it to me. I know you said no, but you don't really mean it, do you? The whole sweet talking thing. And it's, if they've ever had success with it before, they will try it. And if they haven't had success with it before, they still may try it. But they want to wear you down, tear you down. And if they can't wear you down and tear you down, they will start putting you down. Just for saying no, just for being you, just for asserting your right to say no. Now, isn't that outrageous? It's totally outrageous when we look at it from these 4 healthy steps back, because you start to see the pattern, and the pattern is unhealthy. But when we're up close and anxious, we're least likely to be able to come to a solid no. But when we think about it, we take the time, come to a solid no, we have remembered the patterns, and it's not going to work for me. So no. So I told you that by giving you these ideas, I would help you make it stick when you say no. And I know it's simplistic, and I know you might like 8 ways to do it, but there really is only one. Making it stick requires sticking with it. It's a no. No matter which words you put it on, no matter which day you ask me, no matter how you'd endeavor to butter me up, no matter how you'd endeavor to tear me down, I'm a solid no on that. It's just the way it is. I'm not doing anything to you. I am not doing it to hurt you. I have the right to say no. And I'm saying no. Whew. Doesn't that sound freeing? It's a little scary for many people. Just putting that idea out there is, have you any idea how many times I tried it? And that's why I don't do it anymore. Well, I'm encouraging you to do it again. But really think it through. Really think it through from a place of emerging empowered, that you are, in fact, going to take up your space and know that you deserve to draw a breath, and then know that you have the right to say what you think, feel, need, want, prefer, remember, or to say yes or no. That's your right. And just because someone else doesn't like it doesn't mean you have to change your mind. So start small. Say no in little ways and build up. Use the I need to think about it piece. Do the things that I've spoken about and give it a go. See what works and repeat, repeat, repeat. But don't negotiate. Remember, like a boundary, a no has to be solid no, and it has to be non-negotiable. And as you begin to recognize that you have that right to simply say, no, not from a nasty place, not from a childlike place or a childish place, not just for the fun of it, but because you know yourself and it is a no. And I really wish you well with that. And if you need my help, you can go to beaclient.com and have a new client 1 hour appointment with me for $97 one time. Or you can come on over to my emerging empowered community and enjoy all the discussions and 3 group Ask Me Anything calls a month with me at joinintoday.com. joinintoday.com. So these are offerings that you have to solidify your no, to really come to understand that you deserve to be able to deliver that clarity of a yes or no. So think about that. Practice it in your head if you're not ready to practice it out loud. But work up to it because it's really worth doing and it will help you be emerging empowered. So until we meet again, take very good care of yourself because you're precious and you matter. Talk soon. Good evening. How is everybody? I slid into this seat tonight quite quickly, so I didn't have much preparation time. So let's see who's here. Good evening, Haunted. Maxwell, I haven't seen you post before. Great topic. Not often the most healthy thing to say. No is often the most healthy thing to say. It truly is. And if you can get in touch with it being healthy, it's a very good idea. Haunted said, when I would say no to the hijackal, they demand justification for why you are saying that. Oh, they can demand away. Of course they're going to demand. But, you know them. You know them well enough to realize that they're going to demand. They're going to reject your no. They're going to do that. But you're on a new program now. You know you have the right to say no. You are just not going along in any fashion to keep the peace. So you're absolutely right. That's what they'll do. But you are now going to move in a different space, and that will be good. Hello, peace, peaceful warrior. It can feel strange to say no, but recently I've used no as the default answer because it gives some space for me. Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for the space before you deliver the no, because that's healthy too. Demi, hi. It was horribly used by a malignant overt narcissist and discarded like garbage. This person is treating me like I don't exist. Narcissistic abuse is brutal. It certainly is, and I think everyone in here would agree with you. Certainly something we talk about in the membership a lot, because it can be brutal. It's intended to be brutal. That's how they think they're going to wear you down and get in their way and feel powerful in the doing of it. Haunted said, they like to ambush you with a sense of urgency. Oh, yes. I've since decided to use the adage, if I have to answer right now, the answer has to be no. Good one. Great. Let's add that to tonight's wisdom. If I have to give you an answer right now, the answer is no. Buy yourself some time. Great. Okay. For some reason, the type on my screen is so tiny. Okay, 888. Okay. Kimberly, when I finally said no, it was with a capital N. One day, without warning, after years of entitlement and boundary busting, I simply said, "Don't ever call me again," and I hung up. Yes, that is a good solid no, an unequivocal no, and you don't pick up the phone ever again. That's how you make it stick, right? Sounds like that's what you did. Maxwell said they definitely dislike when we change our minds too. Everything you articulated. Oh yes. They're power hungry and they are looking for weaponizing anything you do. And that's a horrible truth about hijackals. They want to find a way to weaponize everything you do. So if you don't say yes to them, they will weaponize it right then or in another argument at another time. And they will just continue the search for, the demand for power over, allowing them to have power over you. And when you say, "No, thank you, not today," not any day actually, but not today, you begin to give them a message that there is a new sheriff in town. This is going to be different. And when you don't falter and get in line right away, it's very worrisome to them. So they'll tend to get more irritable. And then they will go in one of two ways. Either they'll go to the love bombing because they got to get you back in line fast, or they will go to the intimidation and threat, or the silent treatment, because they're not going to put up with that. You know, hijackals are extreme creatures. It's all or nothing, black or white, never or always. They don't have gray areas. So they're going to flip-flop in those ways. Jessica, hello. Good evening. Yeah, we aren't allowed to ever change our minds, right? Peaceful Warrior said, yes, never and always is used a lot. And Jessica, and they can't see anyone else's perspective. Well, we're stuck over here just seeing nothing but theirs. Yes, in a perfect world, that's exactly how they want it. All them know you. You are a vehicle for them getting their needs met. That's all. Sounds awful, doesn't it? But it's true. That's the way they operate. That's the way they think, because they have disordered thinking. They have disordered experiences. That's the way they think. Remember, how many times have I said this? But maybe somebody's new tonight. You didn't break them. You can't fix them. Really important to remember. You didn't break them. You can't fix them. And they are not going to change by themselves. And they are highly unlikely to go for help in any meaningful way. They will go for help alone if they think that they can get a therapist who they can paint a picture of their reality, and the therapist may or may not see through them, or they'll go to therapy with you only as long as they can collude with the therapist to make you wrong, to make you into the bad person, and they can be on the therapist's side. That's why it's really sometimes necessary to come to an expert who just works in this field, because some of them are pretty tricky to see through. You know that already because you're closer to them. Peaceful said, possibly they're anywhere between 2 and 9. Yes, it can vary. They're very seldom 9, though. 9 is kind of curious. 9 is just such a great age. They're not usually great, but certainly, 6, 7. I need more like 3 and 4-year-olds. But absolutely, because they vary, so you could be very right. Yes, it is hard to be their parent, for sure. Jessica says they like to infantilize us, while if at the same time putting us in the parent position. It's ridiculous. Yes, they want us to be their parent and take care of them. And then when we take care of them, they tell us, how dare you? Who do you think you are? Remember, it's very difficult to please a hijackal. Why? Well, those of you who listen regularly know, because they won't allow equality. So if they were ever really pleased, it would come with a caveat of something that isn't good enough, because they will never allow for you to be equal with them or them to be equal with you. And it's very important to see that. They will not allow that. They have to be top dog. They have to be winning. Peaceful said, I had a workplace treating me like that, and I'm leaving there for a better company. The management and HR would try gaslighting me to try and control me. I said, no more. Good for you. Good for you. That's a very bold, brave, and healthy move. I'm glad that you have that ability to do that. That's good. Jessica said, I've been going around with my husband, and I know there is really no changing the behavior pattern, and we're now squarely in love bombing again. Well, as long as you recognize it, maybe you can enjoy the love bombing, because that is the most pleasant phase. So, you know, you're being love bombed, up the ante and ask for a little more. If you're not leaving, at least find something to have as an advantage for you for a short while. And I don't mean that as facetiously as it may sound. Once you see these patterns, you're being used. Hijackals just use people. So if he's being or she's being pleasant and in a love bombing frame of mind, they must want something badly, desperately, or must not want you to leave them. So enjoy it and up the ante. See what the extremes are. Okay. I'm glad something was a great idea, Maxwell. I never know where in the broadcast that showed up, so I don't know to what you're referring. Kate, hello. Unfortunately, things get ever more impossible when they have your children. Well, they certainly do get very, very difficult and more complicated when there are children and when they have custody of the children. So difficult. You're absolutely right. Heather, hi, haven't seen you for a while. The hijackal in my life changed the locks illegally, has my furniture and thousands of dollars unrepaid. He's ignoring my communications. I need to write a communication to let him know that this is unacceptable. What should I say? Threaten lawyers? I'm not sure the best way to proceed. Well, if he has all of that, you have had the conversation about divorce or total separation or the relationship being over. I'm guessing. Otherwise, he wouldn't be withholding things. First question that comes to mind, and I hope maybe you'll come into the membership and ask this question. But whose name is on the place that he changed the locks? That's the first thing that strikes me is he changed the locks, but is your name on the title or on the lease agreement or the rental agreement? That's very important. And you're going to write a communication to him to let him know that this is unacceptable. He already knows this is unacceptable. He's just jumped in to take everything he possibly can with the thought of possession is 90% of the law. So he thinks if I have it, go ahead, take it from me if you can. So you need some good advice there. But what you need to say is, I would like an equitable listing of all of the things that are in our financial assets, our physical assets, our real estate assets, and everything. And then we will have the opportunity to divide it. You be proactive. Say that that's what you'd like to do. And he will be thinking that because he's in possession of it, he's more likely to keep it. And it could be. It all depends where you live and what kind of judiciary system is prevalent there. I have had people who lawyers would not fight for the most basic of things. Even though they said they would, they didn't. It's very disappointing. So when you are leaving somebody and you need to communicate with them, try to communicate as directly as possible with no emotionality, just the facts, just the numbers, because that's really important. I hope that helps, Heather. Maxwell says, power hungry or weaponized. I am so thankful for all of the information. Oh, you're so welcome. And Jessica says, is it stupid to give a spouse a 12-month time period to demonstrate their ability to actually work on self-improvement? 10-year marriage, 2 kids, and I'm starting a new career in the art world. Well, congratulations on your new career and your children, and having been there for 10 years. But a 12-month period of time, that's very generous. One of the things, and this is just an option, but I often say, when someone says, I want to give them some time to do something, and my response is, okay, give them time to show that they really want to change by having at a minimum a monthly joint counseling session that basically is, we're going to work on things that will help our relationship. But the basis of undertaking it together is that if anybody quits, they're indicating the relationship is over. And I've had good success with that because hijackals quit. Why? Because they don't like to be challenged. They don't like to even remotely feel that I know what's going on in their brain. And I'm not tough on them. I just simply am honest. And so they will often say, well, why do we have to air our dirty laundry in front of somebody else? They'll do things like that. Or they'll get really nasty and they'll cast aspersions on me because they love to attack therapists. But you at least then learn that they can't hold an agreement. So 12 months, it's a good period of time if you can hold out that long. But if you were going to do 12 months, it would probably be wise to say, let's take a little space for each of us on a weekly basis to work on these things outside of the counseling. And let's not try and push in the relationship to make each other wrong or to spend too much time together without the time for growth. So those are important considerations too. I don't know about your relationship, so I can't really say that. I have a client right now who moved out of his home. He's moved out one time before, and he wanted to be clear, and he said, what should I do? And I said, well, after 35 years of marriage, I think you have every right to say, I would like a 60-day reset. And he has several homes, and he said, I'd like to go to the one place, and I'd like to stay there on my own for 60 days to really think about things, to go deeply into things and get some help. The hijackal in his life is just intolerant of that idea, even though she knows that there's not supposed to be any contact except in an emergency. He has had to be so strong. So finally, what we had to do was say, if you continue to contact me, each time you do, there'll be a reset at the beginning of the 60 days. So there are all kinds of things we can do. Thank you, Linda, for the super share, this super like. It's always nice to defray the costs, and I appreciate that. Kate says, oh, speaking to Jessica, okay. Jessica says, yes, he's doing a program from another YouTuber. My suggestion, I haven't verbalized a timeline to him. I'm just observing. He's aware I'm to the point of being done. He's hit rock bottom. Okay, well, maybe there's some opportunity then for your negotiating something that says, if you really want me to stay, I have to see sustained change. Because I have to giggle every time I watch divorce court or something like that, and the person will stand up, and it's usually a man, and I guess that's the way divorce court runs. I don't know. And he will say, I am a changed man. Well, he hasn't changed an iota since yesterday, except that he learned to say, I am a changed man. So it's important for us to realize that ABB is our motto. I don't care what people say. ABB, always believe behavior. If the words are the same as the behavior, great. But if the words and the behavior are different, believe the behavior. So if someone says they're willing to work on themselves, great, I'm happy to take some time to see that is incrementally changing. Maybe we can have a monthly meeting and we can talk about the progress. But if it is just, got her to leave me alone for 12 months, that's a whole other attitude toward it. And you have to have some accountability. And everybody knows hijackals hate accountability. So I hope that helps. Kate says they're smarter than we can imagine at dragging things out and getting us back again. Cat and mouse to them. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. It's all about power over and manipulating the situation. And that's what they specialize in. There's only one person in the relationship, according to the hijackal, and that's them. Right? Even the children are just accoutrement. They're just possessions, messengers, weapons of divorce war. There to validate them, make them look good, agree with them, get them to side against you with the children. That's what they do. Jessica says, yes, I know he will drag it out. It took me 10 years to realize I married a version of my hijackal mother. That's not uncommon. I am going to enjoy the love bombing grid, but know it will end. So I'm keeping my boundaries. Great. And you're right, Kate. Never negotiate a boundary or a no. You can negotiate certain things and teach them how to negotiate. And if they won't negotiate in good faith, then it's a no. But, we don't negotiate boundaries or no's. If we have a boundary, we have a solid no, that's straightforward and non-negotiable. Anything else is about coming to an agreement, which is a negotiation. Heather said, it's illegal in my province to change locks of the matrimonial home. Well, there you go. So do something legally about it. Just go to the police and say, I can't get into my matrimonial home. I know it sounds so simple, and police departments are not created equal, But you can use that to just say, I can't be barred from my own home. Now be careful, because the hijackal can make up a story and can cry domestic abuse, or can say you abandoned him. So be careful how you think that through and work it out. Very important. You're welcome, Kate. You're right. We don't negotiate with terrorists, and these are emotional terrorists. Peaceful said, my narcissist was charged with stalking and arrested once. Now we're dealing with a court in my county. They're very demanding people with no regard for others. It's true. It's true. And sadly, as I was just alluding to, courts can be very, very different. And one place to another, judge to another judge. And hijackals, they fire attorneys until they get a hijackal attorney. That's my experience, having been doing this for such a long time. They want somebody who's like them. And the only other kind of attorney they're drawn to is somebody who's very passive and will just do what they're told. But mostly they like to get a hijackal attorney, so there's two against you. Yes, good, Maxwell. Good note. Honda said, my ex-husband hated counseling. He would smoke pot before going. When they found out, they said he can't do that. Once at home, he reframed it as there was nothing wrong with him. Yeah, exactly. That's what they do. I'm good at ferreting out hijackals, as you might experience and expect, but even sometimes, particularly with covert ones, you have to be very careful to assess them out. Peaceful says, I have a criminal protection order, and now I'm working on a DBPO. Good. Get away if you can. Absolutely. And use the courts, use the police, do those things. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't use it willy-nilly as a threat. But when there is just cause, know the laws and call the police. Get a record going. You're not going to use it frivolously. You're going to use it because it's real. And that record can help you and work against hijackal, because it is accrued over time. It's not a one-time thing. And that's so important. So I hope this topic has got you thinking a little bit about the power of no and why it is important. Thank you, Jessica. And I hope you'll practice it in small ways and in ever larger ways. Learn to say no and mean it when it matters. So until we meet again, take very good care of yourself, because you're precious and you matter. Talk soon.